There's certainly a lot of uncertainties kind of simmering around the league right now, and I think that last match is quite indicative. A 7-0 to start things off here on Playday 2. The Chiefs are now 3 points on the board, and we're now turning our attention to a game that I'm still a little bit bamboozled by. The Last Dance, obviously on the back of their victory against Elevate. Kind of feel like this one could be I mean, I actually don't know what to think of this, guys. Do you have thoughts going into this, or are you kind of leaving this a blank statement? No. A bit unprofessional.
Teams, I don't think have really played at their best as of yet. Yes, Last Dance did beat Elevate, but also Elevate a bit iffy on their performance. So I don't really know how to measure these two head-to-head heading into this matchup. I'm expecting the Knights to bounce back after a disappointing performance against Wildcard. And maybe the Last Dance to, you know, ride that high and from that first Playday potentially and get another victory, but very difficult to get a read as to exactly how this one's going to play out because, of course, it's the first time they're going head-to-head.
Well, fortunately, we don't have to talk too much about their head-to-head, more so the individual rosters. Let's talk about the Knights here. Xenox, a team that we are very familiar with and have come into 2022 with, I don't want to say a shadow of disappointment around them, but it does feel like there is this bigger looming question that needs to be answered for us.
I think the one thing is to just maybe take a step back and say some teams are going to perform well with roster changes straight away, and other teams may take a little bit of time. So Knights might end up being in that category where it may just take a little bit more time. Now that might be the second play day. It may be the third play day. So we don't want to sort of jump too far ahead. They've picked up some really good players, Quiz and Stiggs, and then you've still got some absolute talented players on the Knights roster. So look, I think for them, the loss against Wildcard was definitely a little surprising in just the manner of the result. 7-2, quite extensive, off the back of a rough year for Wildcard. But ultimately, they should be coming into this matchup and just try and take, if there is any pressure, try and take the pressure off a little bit, have some fun with it. At the end of the day, the Last Dance coming into this game is not the Last Dance for relegation or even against Elevate. They've almost got some expectations now, right? So this is not like the new team on the block. You should be beating them. No, Last Dance, they've well and truly earned that respect and that acknowledgement that they're a good team. So the Knights don't go into this being like, oh, if we lose this against the Last Dance, we're in bad straits. No, they could lose this game and still have a good stage.
I mean, let's keep talking about that as we start to look at the Last Dance here, guys, because that's probably a good question. Do we think that there is an element of the Last Dance kind of cementing their place in APAC South now? You know, we saw them in relegations. They were dominant in relegations, and they've turned up, Playday 1, and beaten the big boys on the block. Is that enough for us to kind of turn that conversation about them?
Oh, if they win this game, maybe. But again, just as I sort of mentioned earlier, are they going to be able to ride the confidence and the high that they did establish in the previous Playday, or is it just a honeymoon period one-off win where maybe they caught Elevate off guard? We don't know. That's exactly what we're going to find out over the next hour. It's just so hard to get a read in this league, man. I think Last Dance, if they play like they did against Elevate yesterday, where they were manipulating the map quite nicely and being able to set up attacks especially quite well, they're probably going to do all right, and I think Knights might struggle a little bit, especially considering that yesterday in particular, Wildcard's aggression got to them. But we'll just have to see how it plays out, right? Last Dance, still a bit of an unknown quantity. The Knights probably don't have a huge gauge going into this match, but they are a team that preps for themselves. So when they clash head-to-head, it's anyone's game.
Well, I guess, Xenox, do you have any kind of final comments, anything that you want to put a ribbon on for the Last Dance, or are you going to keep that clean slate as I was speaking to guys about before?
Look, I think for them, they're still playing with house money, regardless of the maybe new expectations on a team that can achieve results and do well, you know, top 4 this and playoffs that. There's still that house money to this team because it is their first stage, because they came through the relegations. They get to honestly just have fun with this stage, and you saw that in Playday 1 with their victory against Elevate. They should hopefully, for their sake, as a team, feel confident that they can beat this Knights roster that's obviously going through the transition of new players. So I think they come into this, and if they do get this win, that sets up for a big Playday 3 against the Chiefs. That's all I'll say.
It certainly does, and then really, I mean, that would kind of be like the last hurdle in this conversation about where we're going with the Last Dance. It could well be the fact that they are going to be Titan killers, but we'll have to wait and see. They've got to get past the Knights, who have been a solid roster recently, kind of on a downward trend. This is their chance to knock it back up a notch. It's time to have a look at the veto and discuss the map. It's really hard talking about the map pool here, Xenox, because the problem that I have is the fact that so many teams are new. There are so many unknowns coming into this new season. Oregon, do you have any comments about this?
Well, I was going to say, every time I see this very, very big map veto, I always sort of hold my breath and hope that we're going to be seeing one of the new maps, but not to be again. Oregon's probably a good one for the Knights. I think they should feel pretty confident going to that. A staple, pretty well defensively organized. You know, that methodical approach should hopefully for the Knights to say do well for them. They obviously got to choose between that and Cafe, which I don't think they have a good record on Cafe, so a pretty easy decision in the end. For the Last Dance, I mean, lo and behold, we don't have a whole lot of information to go off at this level because they've only just joined APAC South. So I see one result, 7-0 over MH in the relegations. That's good enough for me. They obviously know their way around the map, so they obviously know what they're going to be doing here. I think this should be a really, really good opportunity for both teams going to one of my favorite maps.
Taking this as a grain of salt, Guz?
Yeah, it's just historical data is almost meaningless at this point, right? With all the roster changes, etc. And I think in the best of 9, I said it again, the 9 map pool, you have a very big opportunity to just completely wipe away the maps that you're never going to play until playoffs anyway. So there's no excuse for either team heading here. I believe they'll both be pretty comfortable looking at some of the numbers. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be hugely impactful.
Look, you're a bit of an amateur radio host, so we'll let that one slide, Guz. But we do have 2 professionals standing by in the wings. Take it away, Dev Mother.
Guess I'm just going to solo this one, Raven. I guess you're not invited to the party, but hey, Knights and Last Dance, this should be a good one. This should be an exciting time for us to see whether the Knights can bounce back, whether the Last Dance fluked their match against Elevate, or whether they really are going to be a serious contender here in APAC South League.
Yeah, I'm quite excited for this one because I feel like, in particular, we know the Knights will be really displeased with how they've played on Playday 1. We feel like there's definitely a lot more to come from them. Last Dance, it's always a question of can they continue the form, and look at that social vote, Dev, 50-50. Love to see that.
Yeah, pretty deadly. And Knights coming into this, I think they're going to be the favored team. That said, a lot of pressure on their shoulders to deliver. Like Xenox was saying, when it comes to the Last Dance, they can't kick themselves too heavy if they lose a game here or there. They're playing on house money still. But the Knights, on the other hand, they're a team that have been, well, they've seen what it's like to be at the very top of APAC South. Stage 2 last year, they were the #1 team in this subdivision, in this region, and yet they could not attend the major due to travel restrictions, and since then it's been a tumble downhill. Let's see if they can redeem themselves, which they failed to do in their match against Wildcard 2 nights ago.
Can Last Dance continue that form as well? Something that is continuing from them, Finker ban. We actually saw it yesterday on the Clubhouse match against Elevate from Last Dance, so maybe this is something that's going to be a persistent standard for Last Dance. Just definitely don't want to be playing against the Finker for whatever reason. Of course, there's multiple reasons they could be going for that ban, but it's always hard to say. Otherwise, we've seen some pretty standard operator bans coming out from Knights, the Jackal and the Mirror. And then we talked about it a little bit on Playday 1. Valkyrie had been trending as a very popular defense ban, has finally come to fruition again here on Oregon.
Yeah, once again, we find ourselves in an operator veto where Thatcher has managed to slip through. We saw it on map 1. I think impactful on Chalet, perhaps, as it would be on Oregon here, but he has made it his way through the veto, and interesting to see that Knights prioritize banning the Jackal instead of him. Regardless, Knights won't be playing the Thatcher themselves. They're still going to be sticking with this Maverick, at least for now, keeping in mind that they can always repick their attackers during the preparation phase.
Yeah, and look, it's been interesting to see the impact that it's had at the competitive level in terms of attacker repick. Of course, it's still very fresh. It's always hard to say how exactly these features are impacting results of rounds at a micro or macro level. But we've seen instances where, you know, halfway through, they've been able to drone out, see a site, tailor their picks a little bit more. I think it was very interesting on our match Clubhouse yesterday, which did have the Last Dance on it. Because they had all these different hard breaches available and the Thatcher, it did allow them that flexibility where they could initially pick 3 hard breaches, and then when they realize that it's a different site, whether maybe they don't need the 3, they could then just attack or repick one of them out for something a little bit more valuable, like a soft breacher.
But it doesn't look like we're going to see any repicks from Knights, and look, I think that's fair enough. I don't think they need to at the minute with, well, the bomb site that they've got, the fact that you've got the Maverick. The thing with Maverick over Thatcher as well, you got those nades, right? You're a 3-speed, arguably a better gun. I think that comes down to personal preference between the L85 and the M4. But at the end of the day, you can achieve basically everything you want to achieve with Thatcher here with the Maverick, plus you've got those nades. So Knights not looking to let that one go. Knights are looking, however, to take very early map control 30 seconds in, and Josh has been live droned all the way through this ground 4. He might even be looking for an early pick through Freezer. If they just let him have this ground, he will happily take it. However, the Grismot from Ape will slow him down and force him back for now.
This is good re-aggression here, actually, from Last Dance. Because as you were pointing out, Knights not taking any time at all to push in and start to obtain some of that map control. So it's very important for that to be checked by Last Dance in that freezer, and that has kind of stopped that progression. But Knights doing a really good job here in terms of just continuing to get their map control, continuing to progress through what's needed to make this attack progress in general. And look, we'll be having to keep a sharp eye on exactly how this might continue to progress. It looks like that maybe they're not going to be taking bunker or anything like that on this attack.
Does seem to be a front push, Laundry and Freezer. Let's already have some info. Quiz on the back stairs. If there's any player in the server right now that I'm going to be keeping a keen eye on, it is the rookie of Quiz, playing in Oceanic Challenger League last year, qualifying for the Oceanic Nationals at the end of the year, but of course never playing a game at that level before he joined Knights. And here he is at Tier 1 of APAC. Very eager to see what he's made of.
Definitely so. Certainly heard some positive things about him, so see whether he can flex some muscle on Knights. But coming into this last minute, Knights have again continued to progress this attack. Haven't quite finished opening that hatch. He's out of gas, right?
Fully out.
Yeah, that's could be something comebacks to bite them. Yeah, my God.
Of course, Sticks could always try and open it if there are no more claws on it. Quiz goes down. Aggression from Hoven. Nets himself a kill at the cost of a lot of HP, but now 30 seconds left. Josh goes deep, but traded back. That forfeits a lot of map control for Knights that they had previously gained. Stiggs goes forth and tries to make the most of that by getting that freezer control back. What a good pre-fire. Hoven goes down. Sage finds a Moser as well, but it's not all over yet for the Last Dance. In fact, they find themselves back onto that horse. Juicy goes down. Ape, a lovely headshot with the Scorpion, and the Last Dance take the first round.
Really good round from Last Dance. I think something that was super key to the success of that defense is that they did do that early check of the quick kind of map control obtaining by Knights. They didn't let them take freezer too early, and also they weren't overextending even in that kind of late round phase. They weren't really giving Knights the easy picks. They were making Knights work as hard as possible for them. I think that was just super important for Last Dance, being able to hold out those final positions to secure that round. So yeah, look, this is already great signs from Last Dance, continuing some of the momentum from Playday 1.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as many bombs as they can.
Exciting time if you're an Indonesian fan, or if you're one of the people who's been watching The Last Dance and their journey for years, because a lot of people forget that this roster, in particular Rix, who we spoke to after they qualified for APAC South via the relegations. I mean, this team and these players have been around for a very, very long time. Some of them played in the Pro League back in the day before we had APAC South, APAC North, when we had the old APAC Pro League with the 4 different subdivisions with Southeast Asia. These teams played it within that Pro League. Of course, when the APAC League came through, they missed out on that opportunity, and these guys struggled to get past the quarterfinals in the Nationals for quite some time, if I'm not wrong. This is a big step up for them, and exciting time to finally find themselves back at Tier 1.
think the thing you could argue too is it's something that we talk about on the desk, right? Is there's not much results or history for us on Last Dance, and it's the same for the teams preparing to face them. So sometimes you could say, oh, that can factor into the results, but honestly, what we saw in Clubhouse and what we've seen so far in the only round we've watched on Oregon, it's not like they're bringing anything that is extraordinary or out there in terms of their strategies or the way that they play. So I think it's just that they've really been able to gel beautifully as a roster just to get here in the first place. And they're continuing some form throughout the league.
Just looks like the Last Dance have really good fundamentals. They, the players themselves don't seem scared or nervous playing against these top-level teams, Elevate and Knights. But nor does the team seem like they don't have an idea of what they're doing. I think everyone here is just performing to the highest level of their potential. And that's quite a significant statement for the Last Dance.
Definitely is. Now, Knights, first 90 seconds, have done a really good job with their attack procedure and the map control they have. Unfortunately for Sage, timing a couple of times here, not finding this opening pick, but they have been able to make some really good progress, opening up some important parts of the walls needed to pressure towards site. So this is a lot of time for Last Dance to kind of weather this storm, and looks like that nade got ate up by an ADS.
Oh my God, told you, just got very aggressive there. Did a bit of damage to Sage, but Knights win out the exchange. Quiz as well to find his first kill of the match. It's now a 4 versus 1. And Hoven has to try and retake up the white stairs. An unenviable position. Through the destroyed barbed wire, up above the drone. He's cut off. Quiz has the angle. SMG-11 now in hand, and that's a grenade. Hello and goodbye, says Juicy. Hoven goes down. And Knights reply with a much more dominant round.
That was a really great round from Knights, honestly. Again, some really good early progress to cut rotations, get some really good map control, progress through the necessary aspects of their attack, so opening up those reinforced walls. And then at that point, it was just so much time for Last Dance to have to kind of ride out. There was some aggressive plays. We saw someone hard peek that double window. It didn't pay off, but honestly, I think at that point, Last Dance did need to make something happen a little bit, because otherwise, the Knights, being the methodical team that we know them as, we're probably going to shut them down anyway. So I think that was a really good response from Knights on round 2.
Meeting Kitchen, interestingly, from Last Dance, they're not going back to dorms. I guess they really suffered on that defense. It was very dominant. Knights had 4 players up at the end of the round. So I respect it from Last Dance to just switch it up. But I think that we've definitely seen a change of pace from the Knights. They're looking a lot better now in that second round compared to what we saw from them in the first. Even in the first round, I would say it wasn't that bad, Raven. I don't know what you think, but I feel like that first round ended up with a 2v1. Last Dance just played the execute better, but I wouldn't say there were that many red flags for Knights.
No, so far they've been looking really good. Like you said, that first round attack, it was actually quite clean and generally really well structured all the way up to the end. It was kind of one of those rounds where, because Last Dance at least had been fairly conservative and not given too much away until the final execute, Knights had to work for the picks, and it didn't work out in their favor. But otherwise on round 2 it did. So yeah, I think this has been a really good showing. I only see 2 rounds so far, but I think from both teams playing quite well, and it's just a matter of who can maintain that form throughout this match to take it.
A lot of damage done very early on onto Hermosa, as we see Knights take very swift map control. The 2 newest members of the roster pushing in from Showers Hallway towards Dining. I like the attacker repick onto the Nomad as well for Stigs, preventing any late round retakes and aggression from the Last Dance. Knights have a lot of map control here. Keeping in mind that it's a ground floor bomb site, Meeting Kitchen, ooh. But Knights are doing their due diligence and taking control of the top floor. Sage on the cutoff from the double window, punishes 8. This is indeed looking like a really strong start for Knights.
Looking good so far. Surrounded these vertical control players from the Last Dance. Oh, that C4, that could have hit the mark on Josh, and that would have been a really big move for Hoven, but it hasn't. And Josh gets aggressive, backs up that nade from Juicy. Some really good pushes here from Knights to clear out these roamers from Last Dance. And just like that, Hermosa and Rix, a lot of pressure on their shoulders.
Yeah, well, just Samosa now. The player that was taken down to about 15 HP at the very start of the round is in danger of losing his life here. Quiz doesn't quite land the first spray down, but with the LMG, there's no chance. And Sage can polish it off. A flawless round for the Knights as the diffuser goes down. And while they started slow, they are looking perfect here.
Doing a really great job with these attacks. Honestly, this is a very big difference to the Knights we were seeing on Villa yesterday against Wildcard. Now, of course, very different opponents, very different playstyles, even a very different map. Villa plays out wildly different compared to Oregon. But at the end of the day, this is this is looking quite clean. And something for Last Dance that I guess is something that could contribute to the fact that they're not performing too well is two superstar players that we saw for them against Elevate on Thursday was Tolji and Hermosa. Now, if you peek across at their scoreboards, they're both still on those donuts. They haven't been able to have an impact, and they were very impactful against Elevate.
I know whether it was just a one-off, but Tolji really showed up Elevate the other day. He was insane. So consistent. Every single gunfight he got into, he seemed to have a magical way of just winning it, despite everything, despite any advantages that his opponent might have. He was just better. Told you diff. We're certainly not seeing that so far. 0-3, like you said, the worst, two worst rated players in the server at the minute are the two players that we've seen step up in the past for Last Dance. Gotta say, it's an exciting prospect seeing Knights back in this form though. They're looking methodical, but also without hesitation. A lot of teams that like to be methodical, step by step, they often lack the confidence and the conviction to just send it when they see an opportunity. And that's what we're seeing Knights do well here.
It's absolutely true. And look, maybe Playday 1 was a bit of a wake-up call for them. Maybe Playday 1 was just a lot more about shaking out the cobwebs. But either way, first 3 rounds have looked great. See if they can continue to close that out. Only 30 seconds in, but it looks like their approach to this attack is a little bit different this time. On round 1, we didn't really see them push towards bunker. It was a very much kind of lobby-heavy approach, more towards laundry, ultimately. But this time there was presence outside bunker, and they're going to have to clear out these roamers. So you can see AP is still trying to be a bit elusive as the Vigil up in dorms.
I think it's a good move for Knights to change up their attack, but like you said, step 1's the roam clear. Can't get too distracted with everything else until that deed is done. Where did 8 manage to go? Rotated downstairs now. Not that Knights would necessarily know it. Down through the kids' hatch. Currently in security. Josh watching for the rotation out. But at the moment, Ape not feeling too much pressure, so he takes it slow.
It's a bit of a whiff, but the trade coming out at least juicy. It's the Maverick off the board, 90 seconds in. Sage done a good job as well to back that one up and take Ape off. So that is the Vigil and that Roamer off. If I can see correctly here with the outlines, it looks like the final 3 players for Last Dance all back on site. And that is certainly the case. So they're going to have to start to anchor in. And it was something they did beautifully on round 1 to secure that only round win that they have. And that was to play very disciplined Siege and make the Knights really work for those final picks.
Usually I'd say here, Last Dance, credit to them, they took out one of the most important operators in the Maverick from Juicy. That said, the Last Dance also, coincidentally, have removed the Qayyid that they brought in the first round. Tolji previously had that, now he's on the Aruni. And so that really means that the lack of Maverick is not such a big deal for Knights whatsoever, and they can do the deed just as well with the Hibana.
Nice little nade and push there from Josh.
Oh, what a
beautiful
shot.
frag onto Tolji, continuing to struggle. And now in this 2v4, the Last Dance, they're going to have a tough time holding on to this defense.
That said, Rix has found a nice one onto Stigs. Low HP is poor Sage on the other side, but Quiz has been completely eliminated, really struggling to deal with that position on the rear stairs. Just Josh now, 1v2, makes it a 1v1.
10 seconds
Josh versus Rix. With less than 7 seconds to go, no diffuser in sight. He's got to win the fight, but Rix is there with the shotgun. And he gets the better. And that is an even scoreline now for these two teams.
It was really well fought from Last Dance in that 2v4 situation. They definitely were not favored at all, but a couple of nice little aggressive plays, one in particular from Hermosa on the rear stairs, kind of really changed the tides for them on that. And of course, have to give credit to Rix. Played that last 20 seconds or so beautifully, and I like that he didn't hesitate here. He could have played in the closet still. A lot of players will kind of play safe in behind that reinforcement. He made the early and very quick call to just rotate back out towards the site, so he had more space to play against Josh, and obviously worked out well in their favor.
It's strange, really, because that looked like such a convincing start and middle of the round for Knights. I gotta say, Quiz is continuing to struggle with the rear stairs position. I think that's the second time he's just been pushed on and lost the fight. Don't know what exactly is going wrong there, but it does feel to me like one of the linchpin factors that is causing Knights to really struggle with those downstairs attacks.
5 seconds to go.
Also seeing some attacker repick. I honestly keep forgetting to keep an eye out for it. It's still very fresh for us as well. But Quiz initially locking in the Zofia has now switched to Nomad, which enabled Josh to switch from the Yana to Zofia. So obviously nothing particularly outstanding or, you know, strategically different, I guess, with those picks. Quiz is obviously going to help a little bit more with flank watch or flank holding with those air jabs. But still, it's just cool to see it in play here. Obviously, it's like 6th pick, so it's just, I would love to try and keep track better of how these teams are really using it and if it really pays off for them.
One of my favorite things about the attacker repick is it shaves about 15, 20 seconds off every single round of the game.
Yes.
So we get to the action faster. Less waiting around. That's exactly what Josh is thinking right now as he moves straight on forwards. Breaches into Master from the Armory hallway, as does Stigs start breaching onto the closet wall into the bomb site itself of games. Or he's thinking about it.
Attackers have located a
Just
bomb.
making sure certain something is set. But again, Knights, very good attack progression here, not wasting any time, still being thorough and careful. You just see Rix heavily tagged from engagement. Potentially it was that double window with Sage. And it's just once again a really great effort from the Knights in the first 90 seconds to be really well positioned. They should be able to find an opening pick here if they're patient enough. They have the last dance fairly well surrounded. This is a lot of time for them to have to weather this.
Good use of flashes to clear out the UMI discs. Ooh, Sage goes down. That's a big one. He was the player on the double window, cutting off a lot of angles and positions inside of the site. Good eye from Quiz there, but no, he gets baited. And Hoven finds his second, at least on the flank. No, I thought Josh was going to win that. It's all fallen apart for the Knights. Stig's now in an unenviable position. No sight on the bearing as well. Juicy is going to have to be the playmaker for the Knights now. 1v4. And still that gosh darn beeper is making a hell of a lot of noise. A big round for the two H's on the last dance. And they actually take the lead here over the Knights.
Oh, really well played from Last Dance, and they actually employed a very similar strategy to the first defense we saw of them on the Dorm site, and that was once the Knights had that positioning where it was just fully surrounded, they were starting to execute on the procedural things they need to do in their attack. Last Dance hit that pedal. They were like, all right, we have to start getting a little bit aggressive here, have to pick a few of these players and try and shut down those positions. It started with losing Sage on that double window. It then frees up a lot more movement in through the middle of the site that's no longer being cut off. And it did enable also for, I think it was Hoven, to rotate to top white, peek onto Juicy, and then it just kind of all derailed at that point. I just really like the call and even the coordination from Last Dance to be able to pull that out.
Some really good timing, wasn't it? Just all at the same time. Last Dance started to cause a little bit of chaos and became a bit unwieldy for the Knights. Now they'll go back to Kitchen Meeting as they've won 2 rounds in a row on their defense. Really, it's the only viable site they're interested in that is now unlocked. The Knights does have a solid chance of making this a 3-3. They previously won this same Bob site at Kitchen Meeting, but Knights could have said the same about Kids Dorms. Just 1 round to go, and then they lost it. Last Dance are learning between rounds, from round to round, from moment to moment. And so I wouldn't count them out here by any stretch.
Definitely not. And it's honestly such a great sign that even when the Knights started to accelerate their success with these attacks, Last Dance have been able to just absorb that and, like you said, kind of adapt to the way the Knights have been playing and not be intimidated, because of course they are the newest team to the league. I have all the rights to maybe feel a little bit shaky and just find their footing, but no, they're doing a really great job. They already took down Elevate, the best team of APAC South in 2021. They took them down in Playday 1. The Knights, for the most part, felt like the second best team in 2021 until Stage 3. And they're doing such a great job of tackling that opponent right here on Playday 2.
Nice aggressive open setup upstairs. Lines of sight deep from Attic into Master. But Knights, once again with the Nomad picked by Stigs, have enabled a lot of control downstairs on the west side of the map, and cutting off any aggression. I think the Nomad is an excellent pick here against this somewhat aggressive Last Dance roster. You want to lock down those roamers, prevent them from retaking ground over you. Quiz, oh no, he's been struggling, but he finds one, traded back. And Quiz continuing to struggle on his new team. Another pick now, it's Sage. Takes down Hoven and gains that man advantage. Just missed out on the opportunity to further that man advantage for his team. A lot of near misses here, in fact, between both of these teams. We settle in with top floor control squarely in hands of Knights.
There's once more a really good display of some coordination from Knights, and that's continuing here as Hermosa has been taken out. But at almost exactly the same time, you saw the Knights pull that trigger. They had great positioning at the double, had great positioning as they pushed through sight. But Tolji's finally been able to find his first kill here, Dev. He's taken out Josh.
Zero potential for a plan here from Juicy. Gets gassed out. Now it's Tolji you really got to be worried about. Like you said, finally gotten off the donut. Stigs pre-flashes it, but he needs to keep a keen eye on that position because Tolji's got a C4, his second kill. But that diffuser has been planted. Rix and Tolji now to retake.
The white stairs goes Tolji. Sage is going to be the one to contest. Sage is going to be the one that wins that. So all on Rix's shoulders. He's got Juicy and Sage to find, and you can see there, Juicy is playing very deep into the small tower. This is going to be a very tough ask for Rix.
Oh no. That's not going to happen. Not one bit. Rix caught between a rock and a hard place, tossed across the room. Grenades at his feet, as are the air jabs. And Knights can even the scoreline. Redeem themselves somewhat. A 3-3 half on their attacking side as they move on to their defense.
Attackers are activating the diffuser.
It was a really good half in general. You know, I honestly don't know which way I would lean in how this match is going. The momentum has been passed back and forth constantly. Flashes of brilliance from both teams. It's definitely a reflective scoreline of how the match has felt. 3-3. It's very hard to separate them at this point. We might be facing a really cool little OT. In fact, the first OT we'd have for the stage.
Definitely looks like we might be on track for it as well. I'm really keen to see how Last Dance do on their attacks. Now, I'm going to check out how they did yesterday on their attacks. It's not coming up on my spreadsheet. Let me open the old Wikipedia and see if I've got that result. So they actually won 3 out of 6 attack rounds on Clubhouse, but they favored their defense, where they won 4 out of 6. So Last Dance, in general, we would have a bit more faith in them on their defense. If they come out swinging on their attack here, particularly with, we see Tolji on the Osa, something a little bit different. I'm actually, I was chatting to Medics a while back, who's Croatian, by the way, as is the operator Osa. Apparently it's not Osa. Apparently it's Osa. So apparently we've all been saying it wrong.
Ooh. Quiz almost with a nice little spawn peek there. But okay, cool. Good to know. Surprised that hasn't come out a little earlier, but you know, can be a bit tricky to be on top of some of those pronunciations.
Like, I'm not usually one to claim expertise on Croatian pronunciation.
Well, Knights on this first defense, holding some nice vertical control here against the Last Dance.
We'll say a very far-field roam from the Knights. A lot of mute jammers to help enable it as well, but Hoven goes in. Surely his footsteps would have been heard. Oh, he just misses the opportunity to take down Josh. Face checking here, very dangerous maneuver for him. But Knights are not punished as of yet, nor have they punished that Last Dance player on the other side.
Certainly not, but time is going to start to be a little bit more important here for the Last Dance. Of course, with the bomb site being basement, there's still a lot of procedure to happen, but with this aggressive extension from Knights, they're going to have to really thoroughly flush out these positions, otherwise they're going to be really finding it hard in the late round on those executes.
Quiz has done a good job of finding a pick here with the 1.5 on the P10 Roni. Sage jumps into it as well. Another headshot, double! All right, Sage, I see you over there. Not leaving a lot for the rest of his team. Last Dance just have 2 players left. 2v5 attacking the basement site. Look, if Knights play their cards right here, this should be a very easy closeout. Hold your crossfires, play on site, and they should be pretty happy.
Yeah, definitely going to be tough for Hoven and Tolji to try and salvage this one. You can see the Knights, they're playing a nice deep positioning on site, not trying to over-aggress at all on these Last Dance players. Also, not much time on the board, 35 seconds for Last Dance to try and save this one. Seems like it's going to be unlikely, and it's been a good round so far from Knights.
Tolji finds one. That's something nice. Sage goes down. His reign at an end. Ooh, Quiz bites off a little bit more than he can chew. Come on, guys. Don't throw this one. Tolji and Hoven looking to make this one count. In the 2v5, now to a 2v3. Looking to push in. Get that plant going down. Juicy's in a great position, and his smokes work wonders. Round to the corner now, it's Tolji. He finds the down. Can't finish it off, and time will be the ultimate enemy. Regaining the lead now, it's the Knights in a 4-3 scoreline.
And it was really good defense from Knights. It was a very different philosophy on that hold compared to the Last Dance. Last Dance was obviously just generally hold to site there and, just delay Knights in general as they progress. But Knights wanted to play a little more aggressive. They set up a much more flexible or fluid hold across the vertical planes of the map. And they just did a really great job at the early contests with Last Dance. You saw it was that 2v5 or 2v4 situation with still about a minute to go. That's always going to be a tough to win position for Last Dance, and it was just well executed from Knights in general.
Not bad from Knights. The early mid-round really won it there for them, you've got to say. Knights now going back to, well, for the first time here, to dorms. We're seeing Stigs on the Thorn. We haven't seen her yet today, if I recall correctly. Didn't remember her from the first matchup. But I know I'm excited to see what people can do with Thorn. Like we kind of discussed earlier, she doesn't really reinvent the wheel, does she? But she's got a nice gun, she's got a shield, and her gadget's not terrible. So in many circumstances, that's enough of a justification to pick her.
Attackers must locate and defuse a bomb.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this is going to play out for Stigs. Again, I think there is definitely a degree of about the comfort of the weapon, but also, we haven't seen her have much play. Of course, this is only the first stage of an esports league or an esports season that she's been able to participate. So I think there's some exciting prospects to how it could be utilized, and this might be an instance where we get to see something really cool.
Ape now moving into the building, taking control from small tower across. In the past, a lot of the meta has revolved around clearing out any players down in dining security, and we can see Knights already possessing some map control down there. Now Rix has found an early pick. Whereabouts was that? Juicy goes down, the smoke player no less. A very valuable early pick. Perhaps that was in through Attic?
Oh, I thought Stigs was going to go on for the peak there, but not to be. But you're right, it is actually a really important pick or a big pick onto Juicy for multiple reasons. He's such a strong smoke player. We've seen it throughout previous stages. Certainly a solid backbone for Knights. But he's also been really in form already in the last 2 play days. You can see there on the scoreboard, he's actually got the best record, at least for Knights so far in this map. So that is already a great start to the round for Last Dance. Going to continue to progress here. They've got 90 seconds to go. And they're starting to really put a little bit of pressure here on this Knight structure.
Bomb located by attackers.
Narrow angle now for Rick. Sage just missed the player crossing. And Quiz is going to be unhappy about that one. No trade as well. In fact, 8 piles on. A 5v2, but in the reverse of what we saw in the previous round, it's Knights on the back foot.
A bomb has been located.
It's almost like a role reversal of the previous round here. Last Dance, just like that. Flawless round just came out of nowhere. Beautifully executed by Last Dance. And this is still being a match that is very hard to separate.
Well, 4-4 on the scoreboard right now. Last Dance every single moment. The Chiefs, rather Knights, are looking good. The Last Dance have a reply. On top of that, Dorms continuing to prove to be a fairly hard bomb site for the defense to hold. Now Knights, will they go back to Dorms? Indeed they do. In contrast to what we saw from Last Dance, switching it up and going over to meeting, Knights are looking to double down. I mean, what can they really change? It all started with that first opening pick onto Juicy, right? Who I believe was in Attic when he died. It was a really early pick. Rix found it on the Maverick.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I think it just it probably just didn't feel like it worked from the start for Knights. Certainly Juicy, one of those players, you know, he's not meant to be playing on a roam, for example, so it's not one that you would factor into your strategy to lose early. Of course, it happens sometimes. You've got to adapt to those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, I think it really just destabilized what Knights were trying to do. They had to obviously fill that void, because that's what happens, right? If you lose an anchor player early, it's not like you can potentially just leave their position vacant like you would a roamer. You have to rotate around to cover that, and it just really destabilized things. I think there was a lot more to it. Last Dance in general just looked very tidy on their execute or their attack overall. But I have faith that Knights have probably got a good read on what they need to change.
Well, starting with pretty default stuff here from Last Dance. Already starting to put some pressure on Master Bedroom, but also continuing to clear out from below like we saw previously. Nice champion charm there from Hoven as well. Goes to show just what he's capable of. Bit of a ranked demon, as most of these players tend to be. This just looks like the same as last round, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, look, it's already some really good progress from Last Dance. And I think they probably wouldn't be looking to change too much themselves. I think they've had a very successful attack on this one in the previous round. So again, if it ain't broke, why change it? But Quiz certainly going to be causing a few issues in the server position. They need to work together to try and pinch this one out. He's got the easy retreat with the hat. And I think it's going to come a lot more down to if Quiz kind of overstays his welcome in so to speak.
Well, last time, I think it was Sage who was looking through the vert and was meant to be covering Quiz, and unfortunately he just missed the player who pushed on through. So if Knights are perhaps covering the angles a little bit better this time, they're not likely to lose that control as easily. But that said, Last Dance have made excellent progress. Good breach from the Hibana on that kitchen wall, cuts off that position a lot better. Hoven just misses. Josh dancing around those bullets. This nade could be near perfect. Sage taken so low. Last Dance are making excellent progress here, but still yet to find a pick.
The Quiz now on this late rotate. See what that could do for Last Dance. Their attack now needs to start moving on a little bit more. 40 seconds to go. Need to give themselves that opportunity to go for an execute. And it looks like the execute is going to be mostly based around the double window. You can see the diffuser. It's in the hands of Hermosa on the Hibana, right outside that double window. So they're going to have to go for this jump in. Knights seem to know that, or at least that's where they want to focus. Juicy blocks that off. And with 20 seconds, this could be challenging.
Very, very risky now. Juicy still one gas in the pocket. Sage as well watching for the jump in. Oh. And here's the flank from Josh. Takes down Tolji. And that's one of the avenues Last Dance were hoping to use. Gone. Jumps in the window. Juicy shuts it down. It's all over. There's no chance for Knights to lose this round, and they make it flawless as well. A tactical timeout is called by the Last Dance in reply.
Yeah, that one really derailed for Last Dance, but it was also great from Knights. You know, I think they read really well into how the Last Dance approached that attack. And Last Dance, I think they tried to adapt a little bit, but at the end of the day, They left themselves not enough time, especially for a double window execute. Juicy was able to just smoke that one out, and the Knights had all the perfect positioning because of the lack of pressure coming from the other side of the map. So, look, I think it's a good call from Last Dance to take this time out. I don't think they're playing that bad at all, but it's starting to get to the business end of the match, right? You don't want to let these rounds bleed away.
Yeah, what can they really do to change this? I mean, one thing's for sure is Last Dance know that Laundry is now unlocked, and clearly taking the tactical timeout here, they're aware that that's the priority for them, locking in a Laundry supply attack. If they can crack that elusive egg that Knights really established quite a stronghold in the first round. It was an early 5v2 thanks to some good roam work. Last Dance would be much more confident if they could break that here.
Certainly so. And I think I've said it so much, but once you start to see your opponent hit the 5, it does feel a little bit scary sometimes. You know, 1 round away from having to force OT, 2 rounds away from just taking the match as it is. So Last Dance certainly can't afford to be losing this round. It means they'll have to get 2 successfully to stop the Knights from taking the match, or at least 2 successfully to push it into overtime. And that's certainly a very important thing for Last Dance. And I think, again, the timeout call was perfectly timed.
Are they going to make the most of it? Thatcher is up and being picked. Didn't see that previously. The Osa making a return as well. What is the idea with the Osa, I wonder? Like, what are you really going to get out of Osa on this bomb side? If anything, I feel like the Flores is most likely to have a big impact here.
Flores could certainly be an interesting X factor into this attack. Also, the Osa, we haven't really seen the impact of that yet as it's been picked, so I'm excited to see how that could be used by Tolji. He has found himself a little bit more into the game in terms of the scoreboard. But first 30 seconds, the intention looks like they want to take bunker, and it's not something we saw from the Knights on their attack half in terms of attacking this site.
I was going to say, I respect you for hitting it with the Osa rather than the Osa. Good on ya.
Thank you, mate.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to remember to do that. It's just something that came up when I was saying Osa before. I remember hearing Medic's voice. It's actually Osa. But again, he said it in like his Croatian accent, so it kind of sounded like halfway between Osa and Osa, and I can't even. All right, Josh.
Oh, jeez.
He's taken down Herm Osa. Funnily enough,
You've done it.
on the Hibana. I know I did it. Had to do it to him. So not a good start here for the Last Dance. And while we can look at operators like the Osa, like the Flores, and say, hey, these are going to be the linchpins for the Last Dance, the thing is, this is a roam-centric hold from Knights, so you need to address the roam.
Definitely so. But look, this is already good positioning from the Osa, pushing forward with the shield. It's a really strong position, actually, to be able to hold down and see all of this intel towards Pillar. So I'm liking this already from Last Dance, even though they have, lost the Hibana. I think this is actually some pretty decent progress and an important kind of pressure point. That being said, though, the Knights still have control of meeting. They have control over that hatch, so it's going to be a little bit of an awkward push through.
Kuz goes down once again. Even man count for both sides. Kuz caught in a rotation. Don't know exactly what happened there. Hoven now can open up this hatch. And that's another avenue of opening for the Last Dance. But Sage has shut down an ingress into blue. Hoven's now going to have a significant contribution. But Josh, as they're ready and waiting, does land enough shots to take him down. Tolji and Rix to try and push in the 2 versus 4. Rix goes deep. He might have the number of Juicy. And he does. Now the plant going down. Tolji's got a pretty good position, but he has to land the spray down the 1, but not the 2nd. Oh my God. Sagen has to win it in the 1v1, the pre-fire. And there it is. The clutch. It got far closer than it should have. But my God.
Oh, That was it was a sweaty moment there, and Knights going up to 6-4. I tell you what, I felt like Last Dance were going to do a good job of salvaging that one, but they just couldn't do it. Very strong one from Knights, and this is a scary position for Last Dance right here. It's like I was saying at the start of that last round, they're now facing that 2-round deficit. That's challenging. They've lost the chance to get 3 points. They have to force OT now.
No second chances now for the Last Dance after a round like that, which would certainly be a bit of a tilter. Knights are showing what they're worth.
So, what do Last Dance need to do? 2 rounds deficit, and I tell you what, I'm just not sure that they're going to be able to stop this Knights train. They've just been doing such a great job at progressing this game forward and continuing to answer every step up that the Last Dance have had. This could be the last chance for the Last Dance to save this one.
Nice one there, nice one. I see what you did there. Well, Knights on kitchen meeting. Not a bomb site we've seen them take as of yet. So this is really a fresh hold that we're seeing from them. The Goyo. In fact, Raven, I don't know if we've seen Goyo, who is essentially a brand new operator, thanks to his rework. Have we actually seen him yet in APAC, Sal?
10 seconds remaining.
I don't think so. Not since the rework. No, I don't think so.
It's kind of exciting. I mean, people don't realize at first, I think a lot of people don't realize at first, this thing has a hella long radius. Like, it is a huge area of effect that flames will encompass. So it can be very, very powerful if used correctly.
Definitely can. And look, I'm certainly excited to see how the rework of Goyo can be re-utilized into competitive, because obviously the use of his shields was a really big factor in his pick rate. But his gadget is still pretty strong. The area denial, the length of the burn or the duration of the burn can actually be so critical in some site holds. So I'm really excited to see what Sage can do here. And the fact is he's been having a pretty good game so far, 11-5, pretty strong scoreline that we would come to expect from him.
Last Dance looking for this roam clear, going from Big Tower across. The Osa once again making her appearance. I mean, this is, I would say, like a vanilla, a default attack, right? Just with a couple of bits of spice, like the Osa here, which enables Tolja to aggressively hold this hallway, which is nice. Now, Josh doesn't have any ability to deny this wall, aside from the mute jammer that's just sitting there, stagnant. Surely the Maverick can make swift work of that, however. So I wouldn't expect it to take long for that wall to be breached, and there you have it.
Definitely some good pressure here from Last Dance. First 90 seconds. Not fruitful in the frag department, but at least they have some degree of this map control. They need to be able to capitalize, though. Knights continuing to play very fluid. You see Stiggs roaming around still on the bottom floor, and that is a big pick from Josh onto Tolji. That also now not going to be able to have an impact with those shields and put that pressure back onto Knights. And now also the pressure, speaking of, further surmounting against the Last Dance, because they cannot let this round slip.
Pressure onto Josh as well now, but he is in such a pivotal position and protected, thankfully, by the upturned table. On for a flank as well. We've got Stiggs downstairs. Last Dance, 40 seconds left. They're watching for that flank, but they can't watch it forever. Numbers disadvantage for the attacking sides. The team with all of the pressure mounting right now, and it's just going to keep on talking up. Knights now in a 5v3 with the map win ahead of them. 3 points handed up on a silver platter. Josh in an aggressive position. He can take one down. Traded back, but it's just Hoven left. He can find his third of the round. What's triple kill? But there's only 2 players dead. I don't know what's happening, but Hoven, he is a dead man walking. The Knights finish off the job and take the victory. A 7-4 and their first win of APAC South in 2022.
Really good job for Knights to bounce back after a very disappointing effort from them yesterday against Wildcard. This was a far better performance. And honestly, the Last Dance were not a pushover. Actually played a very good Oregon. They really stepped it up constantly as the Knights got back-to-back rounds or really pulled out a fourth round here and there. Last Dance were always kind of there to bring the challenge back to them. So certainly have to commend them, but Knights, this is much more what we expected to see out of them for stage 2.
Bit of redemption, bit of a better showing from Knights' new roster. I feel like Stigs on the support has really been showing up and helping the star players shine a bit more from Knights, but I think we'll acknowledge that there's a long way to go. That wasn't a perfect game for the Knights, but nonetheless, it was one that they can take home. They can tick off and say, look, especially when the Last Dance are appearing as dangerous as they are right now, already taking down Elevate earlier in the week, I think that Knights will be happy to just have 3 points on the board and start making their way trekking towards the top of the standings.
Yeah, I think Knights in general, they're going to have to kind of battle a wave of fitting this roster in terms of their form. I think it's quite a big change for them in terms of how their playstyle is going to have to progress moving forward. But I saw some really good moments where the Knights were kind of shades of them old selves, or the strong Knights that we saw from last year. Their attacks, for example, taking really swift early map control was a very distinct feature of their attacks throughout 2021 that was really good for them. So it's really nice to see that things like that haven't fallen off the board. But look, I think this was a really good showing from both teams, honestly, but Knights ultimately coming out stronger.